On to Bangladesh now. Will the country ever see a truly democratic government again? Or are we witnessing the birth of a forever government, cloaked in the guise of reform? The precarious state of democracy in Bangladesh continues to be a matter of grave concern. As per reports, Mohammed Yunus made a pledge publicly to hold elections, but there is a catch here, a catch that raises more questions than answers. Yunus insists that a free, fair and participatory election can only occur after the interim government completes its mandate to implement what he describes as vital reforms. Now, what does that mean? And more importantly, who gave him that mandate in the first place? Is this truly a mandate from the people? As per reports, in his first interaction with the foreign diplomat stationed in Dhaka on Sunday, Yunus laid out a list of necessary reforms in the Election Commission, judiciary, civil administration, security forces, and the media. Now, on the surface, these may sound like necessary steps to rebuild a shattered democracy, but let's not forget the context here. Yunus accused the previous government under Sheikh Hasina of breaking every institution in the country, claiming the judiciary was compromised and democratic rights were crushed under a regime he labeled as a dictatorship.
Sheikh Hasina dictatorship destroyed every institution of the country. Judiciary is broken. Democratic rights suppressed through a brutal decade-and-a-half-long crackdowns in every way. Elections were rigged blatantly. Generations of young people grew up without exercising their voting rights.
Now, if the previous government was indeed a dictatorship, as Yunus claims, then why should the people of Bangladesh trust this new regime, which seems to be following a similar path of consolidating power? Is this just another power grab under the pretext of reform? And how long will these so-called reforms take? Weeks, months, years? We do not know. But the longer this process drags on, the more it begins to look like an excuse to delay the elections indefinitely. Let's just consider the implications of what Yunus has actually proposed. The reforms, he argues, are crucial for transforming the country into a real and thriving democracy. If Yunus is waiting for the students, the so-called revolutionary force behind this interim government, to establish a democratic government, how long are we really talking about? In the meantime, who is holding this government accountable is also the question. As per reports, there have been calls from various corners internationally for steps to restore a democratic government in Bangladesh. Over 50 diplomats were present when Yunus made his statements, including representatives from India and the United Nations. According to reports, Yunus spoke of a future Bangladesh, one that is poverty-free and prosperous, supported by the international community. But then let's not get lost in the rhetoric. The reality is far more complex. You see, this is a government that was not elected by the people. It was brought together by a set of unprecedented circumstances, with Yunus himself claiming 27 portfolios, 27 for his interim government. And these are not minor positions, by the way. They are the very heart of the country's administration and functioning. Experts said that the interim government's actions since it came to power do not point towards a healthy democracy, but rather a red flag, signaling the rise of another authoritarian regime. Most of the government's time has been spent on crackdowns, like blocking the passports of 600 influential people, many of whom allegedly benefited from the Awami League government, or sporadic instances of a show of power, like last week when it called back 7 ambassadors appointed by the Awami League back to Dhaka. Experts said that Bangladesh's constitution does little to clarify the situation as far as the interim government is concerned, and in many ways it only complicates matters. The 13th Amendment in Bangladesh's constitution established provisions for a caretaker government to conduct general elections and transfer power. According to this amendment, elections had to be held by a caretaker government within 3 months, but this was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court and subsequently abolished by the Awami League government in 2011. So where does that leave Bangladesh now? The constitution does not provide clear guidance on the scenario of an interim government, leading to a legal dilemma that only adds to the uncertainty. Yunus's latest comments will undoubtedly stir fears within the opposition. Former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, who has spent the last 4 years under house arrest, is unlikely to sit quietly as Yunus consolidates power. Zia, in fact, has already called for early elections and a transition to a democratic government. Meanwhile, Sheikh Hasina's son, Sajib Wazir Joy, has said that his mother may return to Bangladesh whenever fresh elections are announced. But here's the crux of it all. We do not know how long this interim government is going to last. Bangladesh's political future remains shrouded in uncertainty, and only time will tell whether this government will actually deliver on the promises or fall into the same trap that has plagued the country for so long. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.